afternoon. My name is Hillary Conzel. I'm the Chief Safety and Environmental Officer for Metra. And Metra is a commuter railroad in Chicago. I know this topic is not the most uplifting topic, but it's something that we deal with every day. Not only, more so with our traveling public, so to speak, or people who want to end their lives by suicide. So we found that since 2011, our people jumping in front of our trains and commit suicide have been going up and up and up. So we kind of were thinking of ways to kind of look at reducing it. So I'm just going to go over our program, and then what we actually did was we kind of brought it in-house too, because we realized our employees are having issues, So, and I'll touch on that a little bit, because I think part of your health and wellness program, no one ever thinks of mental health, is part of the health and wellness program. So we've actually incorporated that into our program, and our use of, our EAP program has gone up 50% within the last year. I mean, and it breaks down numbers like why people are utilizing it, more family issues, drug use, depression, and that sort of thing. So it's pretty interesting. So just real quick, I'm going to breeze through, like our system overview, some issues that we go through running a railroad, which pertain to suicides, and kind of identify the challenges that we have through our system. So our system, in 2016, we provided 83 million passenger trips. We handle about 288,000 passengers a day. We got 11 rail lines. Every weekday, we operate 686 weekday trains, and then 51 deadhead trains. We call those are non-revenue trains. So if we have a run that we have the train's got to get back out to run people back in, that's what we call deadhead trains. It's out of service. On weekends, a little bit less, 260 trains on Saturday and 173 on Sunday. We got 242 train stations, 24 rail yards, 12 fueling facilities. But the biggest number here is we got 571 grade crossings. So usually either somebody will walk up on a grade crossing to commit suicide, wait for the train. As soon as they see the headlight of the train approaching, they'll walk out, or they'll walk a ways down to where it's more desolate, and they'll come out of the bushes. So that's kind of what happens. So sometimes running a passenger railroad, it's like running a community. So Metra we move the same amount of people as the fourth largest city in the state of Illinois, which is 180,000 people, which is Naperville, Illinois. Now we operate with the 686 Metra trains. We also operate in coordination with freight and passenger, which is Amtrak. So, I mean, there's a lot of involvement. The freight rail has the same issues we do with suicides, except their approach is a little bit different, because from a legal perspective, they feel that if they know of a risk, then it puts them on notice, and then makes them liable. Which we've been doing this since 2011. We haven't had any issues with identifying any problems with that. But so just to give you a quick overview, so we have our 737 commuter trains that operate every day. Then that's on top of 500 freight trains, 56 Amtrak trains, 40 South Shore trains that go into Indiana. I mean, our trains operate at 79 miles an hour, freight operated at 60 miles an hour. And when somebody gets struck that fast, it's almost fatal. There's no really chance of survival. No. It's like putting a gun to your head. But a lot of people don't have access to guns, so they use the train. And the thing with our train is, all you gotta do is open up the schedule, and you know when the next train's coming. You know, and a lot of, so I did a study, I pulled out, my department does all the reporting on all these, we do the accident investigations and everything. And we went back 5 years, and what we determined is everybody that committed suicide, or the majority of them, they lived within like 2 miles of the train track. So, you know, it's close proximity. You know, the interesting thing is 25% of all rail traffic throughout the United States either terminates, originates, or passes through the city. So there's a lot of traffic. And then these are all the railroads that go through the city of Chicago. Now, our suicides are actually down. Because I'll go over the program that we have, but all of the Union Pacific, Canadian National, all their suicides continue to rise because they don't want to address the issue. And, you know, they're like, well, what can we do? You know, and that was our mentality. You know, we're like, well, what can we do if somebody steps in front of the train? They're going to step in front of the train. But then I went to a training on suicide awareness by accident. And this is just pretty much, it was an open system. This is what we already went over. But so I went to a suicide awareness training through Sertoma Group, and they were training people on how to identify somebody who may be suicidal, or who may be going through some things or emitting signs of trying to commit suicide, and some of the things that they say and that sort of thing. So I was in the transit industry or railroad industry for a long time, and after a while you kind of know what to look for. You know, if somebody's on the side of the road, you know, their car's parked there or whatever, after the train passes a couple times, or if you see somebody, you know, hanging around a location that's not really like at a grade crossing, and they're not passing, you know, and, you know, so those are kind of some things to look out for within, you know, our industry as far as visual. But, you know, on our trains you can sometimes find out a little bit more because conductors hear a lot. You know, we still have conductors on our train that collect tickets, so they, you know, converse with people. They have conversations with them, you know, the ticket. A lot of times they'll come up with people who are depressed. I mean, we've had conductors identify passengers who are suicidal. You know, we get them help. So it's kind of been the benefit of this program as well. But when somebody stands in front of a train, or in this case, she's just running in front of the train to get to the other side. But we have a couple ways that that act or event is kind of memorialized. So we have the engineer right away call. We have the Metro Police Department. They'll call our dispatcher, and they'll dispatch the Metro Police to the scene. If the police can't get there within like 5 minutes, based on where they are, they will notify the local municipality to respond. So a lot of times the local municipality responds a lot quicker than we do, because we only have 130 police officers, and we service a 6-county region, which goes from Kenosha, Wisconsin, all the way down to Manhattan, Illinois, and Joliet, Illinois. So it's a large area, geographical area. But and they intervene. Most of the time, they'll intervene with the individual if they're still there, and that's how some of our interventions occur. We also have an engineer's near miss report. So what they do is they'll fill out all the pertinent information, location, time of day, male, female, clothing, that sort of thing, and then we enter all that into a database to identify trends or hot spots, like where we see people trespassing. Sometimes it's just people trespassing rather than trying to commit suicide, or kids playing chicken. And then we could, you know, identify the appropriate resources. If it's kids around the school, we have an Operation Lifesaver Train Safety Education program. We'll send that program to the school and do educational train safety presentations to the students. So it helps us kind of identify what resources we need. Education is the easiest, you know, I mean, not, I shouldn't say easiest, but is like the most immediate resource that we could apply to certain situations. So we'll dispatch like our Operation Lifesaver presenters. A lot of the area schools have them incorporated into the driver's ed program for high school kids and stuff like that. We do school bus drivers, professional truck drivers, that sort of thing. We also do station safety blitzes. If our education program doesn't work, then we start writing tickets. And this is where this guy comes in. So we have like undercover cops at stations. We'll usually do an educational blitz at a station if we have problems with people trespassing. And then the next day, we'll have the plainclothes officers there, and you see everybody's behavior. It's unbelievable. So that's kind of like the education outreach portion of what we do. We do a lot of other things as far as trying to prevent trespassers, but those are the individuals that are either running late for a train. You know, a lot of times a train, I mean, it looks like it's going a lot slower than what it is because it's so large, and it's quite a distance away. But when it comes up on you, you know, when those gates start coming down, you only have 20 seconds. You know, which you think it's not really a lot of time. So getting back to the mental health awareness training. So what we did, I went to this mental health awareness training, and I was kind of skeptical. I'm like, well, how are we going to, you know, implement this? And I was talking to the instructor, who was a psychologist, and they offered to come in and kind of look at what were, you know, our problem areas and what we're having problems with, and how we could adapt it to our environment. So she came in, and we got it was a grant that we got. So they started providing it to our engineers and our train crews and supervisors, our transportation supervisors, initially in 2015. And some of the clues that they look for, like behavioral clues, like nervous, anxious appearance, agitated or angry, if they're pacing, walking near the right of way back and forth, but not leaving the area. Those are one of the things that we have identified. If they're sitting in their parked car, dressed in dark clothing, some of those things. And how we came up with all these is we have locomotives on the front of our cameras on the front of our locomotives. So we went back and we looked at some of the things that you might see, you know, with somebody who is trying to commit suicide. And we went back to the actual events where they, you know, use the train as suicide, and come to find out they're, you know, they jumped out of their car last minute, and then, you know, they were there 3 trains passed before they got the, you know, nerve up to get out of the car and, you know, commit suicide. So the other thing is like lack of belongings, or if you're standing on the edge of the platform, we have yellow tactile strips that are 12 inches, you know, just kind of identifies stay back, train's coming. And a lot of times people will be like this, right on top of the, you know, right on top of the tactile. But those are the people that are either trying to see how close they can get, like thrill seekers, or, you know, they do want to harm themselves. We had a manager that was at this train station, and the guy was standing like right on the tactile, and our manager's like, "Sir, step back, you're too close to the train, you're going to get hit." He goes, "That's what I wanted. That's what I want to happen." And as soon as the train came in, our manager grabbed him by his hood and just pulled him back. You know, but it was just things like that. This training, you know, our manager, he said, "I would have never thought, given it another thought, of observing people on the platforms as part of my job." And so now, you know, because basically our transportation managers, their job is to make sure the train's running on time. You know, on-time performance really is very important. Make sure the train doesn't break down. Observe the crews. Make sure they're, you know, the crews are operating in a safe manner. But we always left the passengers out, or the people on the platform. So now they're more aware of the surroundings. You know, they'll look at, you know, what's going on around them, kind of assess the situation, and that's, you know, we've had a lot of saves like that. We've had one individual who is B&B, which is our building and bridges department, our maintenance department, and he was working on a station, and he looked up, there was a bridge overhead, and there was a woman standing on the ledge of the bridge. And he looks up, and he's like, oh my God. And it was over our tracks. So he went up there, talked to her. She was actually waiting for the next train to commit suicide, to jump. And he actually was able to, talk her down and, wait until help came, until the paramedics came and they assessed her, and then obviously they admit her for an evaluation. But so those are just kind of the biggest, I guess, component of this program has made our employees more aware, not only of the surroundings on our platforms, but even internally. We've had a couple employees that identified their coworkers, as needing help, and a couple of them have been suicidal. We've gotten them help, so it's helped all around. So that's pretty much like as far as this is a sheet that we give as a handout. But so Metro's a transportation agency. We're a railroad. The biggest thing that we had found was getting buy-in from other mental health organizations, the news media, and that sort of thing. So our chairman of the board, who's a big champion of this program, he had said, he said, suicide's not a railroad problem, it's a community problem. He says, because when somebody commits suicide, it affects all of us. It's not just, Metro or whatever. So we held the symposium. We got all the 6 county mental health departments together. We've had a couple key speakers from Northwestern Memorial Hospital who specialize in suicide ideology and that sort of thing. So we started working with them to create a partnership, and we're doing a lot more. We created signage that came out of this. We worked to create signage at all of our stations, which we now have a partnership with the Suicide Prevention Lifeline and also Crisis Text Line, because while suicide in the United States is up 30% from 2006, teen suicide is up 70% from 2006 to 2016. So those numbers to me are alarming, because I have 2 teenagers, and I'm like, I look at my kids, I'm like, I wonder if they're suicidal, because you never know. I mean, nowadays kids, they don't talk, all they do is text, So you got to kind of have a dialogue. But with the crisis text line, it's really convenient, because if we came up with this tagline, I got you, and if you text I got you to 741-741 within 30 seconds, a licensed clinical psychiatrist will respond. So we thought that was a phenomenal kind of like an alternative for the millennials, for the younger generation, since their rate is really high. And I really don't, from a personal perspective, dealing with my kids, I don't see them calling the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, even though Logic has sung about it, and a couple other artists. But I think that given another alternative, I think it's a good option. So we've rolled that out this year, so we don't really have a lot of numbers on it yet, like a lot of data. But the biggest thing for us was, if we're going to implement a program, we need to make sure it's measurable, because you don't want to implement a program and not know if it's working, or you want to be able to identify if it's not working. So with the Suicide Prevention Lifeline, we get data with them. It's still too new, so we don't have a lot of data to see how, the call volume. And then with the crisis text line, we get data for them as well. And this tagline that I got you is specific to Metro, so they'll tell you how many people contacted crisis text line off of that tagline. So we know that it would either be Metro passenger, or, you know, maybe a loved one of a passenger or whoever. And that was the whole, like, premises behind this sign, because a lot of the signs, like Amtrak, they just have this sign up, you know, which kind of, the thought process when we had the symposium, we wanted to create a mental health awareness program so we could maybe get people, either family members, loved ones of somebody who may be, you know, displaying mental health issues or, you know, depression or what have you, and get them help sooner before they get to the point where they want to commit suicide. Because it's, you know, mental health awareness, everybody looks at it like it's a stigma, and it's I mean, from my perspective, I think everybody that I know has been depressed or felt down at one point in their life, or, you know, whatever, and sometimes you just need somebody to talk to. So our goal is to continue this with as a mental health awareness program rather than a suicide prevention program, because we'd like to get them help before that happens. And we're looking right now at other I say options, but it's not. It's other opportunities. We're looking like at an app right now, so that we can offer our passengers and our employees. If they see somebody along the right of way, or usually it's passengers, if a passenger sees something or sees something out of the ordinary, they can take a picture and they'll remain totally anonymous, because a lot of people don't like to get involved. So it'll go through the app and send it to our police department. So we've been working with Network Rail out of London, so out of the UK, and they have an app. It's called 501. Or wait, no, I'm sorry. I think it's 501 or 511. I forgot what it is. But so we're gonna see what we can do. You know, they have that, but their app is they have a good app. It's just it's in the United Kingdom, not the United States. So we have to make sure that whatever we build is adaptable for the United States. The biggest thing that we have, like as far as operationally, when somebody does commit suicide, is you know, the acts are intentional. The engineer is always, you know, at the front of the locomotive, and I'd say 90% of the time, the individual, if they're facing the engineer, they look dead straight at the engineer's eyes, and the engineer just like feels helpless. So, you know, it really affects the engineer, the conductor. The conductor has to go out and identify the remains, wait for the coroner to show up. Sometimes they're in one piece, sometimes they're in 11 pieces, you know. So it's traumatic for the conductor. We provide them with a couple different services. One of them is through our employee assistance program. So once when they strike somebody, they automatically have to go see the EAP specialist. And the reason why we do that is because they may think they're okay, we may think they're okay, but we're not professionals. And they're actually controlling equipment that is carrying 1,500 passengers. So our goal is to make sure the passengers are safe. So that's why we do that. But they do get 3 days off if they need it. If they need without treatment, if they need more than 3 days, then they have to go like for counseling and, you know, treatment, just to make sure that they're processing, you know, the event properly and making sure that they're emotionally okay and that sort of thing. Because we do have engineers who've hit a lot of people. We've had one engineer, he has PTSD now, but he's hit 7 people. And so, you know, the last one was a 14-year-old kid, and that kind of sent him over the edge. It's just, you never know when, you know, what'll happen. So they deal with it a lot, and it's funny, not funny, but it's, a lot of people don't really realize what the train crew goes through, what the engineer goes through. They always think of the loved one or the, you know, family member or what have you. So it does affect the train crews, you know, delays. There's delays. I mean, within the city, you get people on the trains, they're like, just clean up the body and, you know, bag them and let's go. I gotta pick up my kids from daycare. I mean, that's how people talk on the train. I'm like, are you serious? I mean, it's just, I mean.
Why should they be inconvenienced by somebody else's stupid act?
Right, exactly. So what we've done is we've created like a lot of partnerships. These are just some of them that I work with, trying to, you know, get the mental health awareness thing out more so in the forefront, because it not, like I said earlier, it not only affects all of us, but you know, it affects our employees internally as well. You know, not only just our train crews, but so the training that we provide, I should have went more into the QPR training, but the QPR training that we provide our employees, it has helped them, I think, sometimes more so internally, you know, than it does externally. But I don't have numbers on how much it helps them internally. We have a workforce of 3,000 people, and within the last year, we've had 3 people, well, we've had 2 people commit suicide, and 3 people, you know, they were working and they told their supervisor or, you know, one of their coworkers, they're like, I need help. And, you know, and their coworkers take it serious. They're like, all right, let's go. You know, we go to the supervisor, you know, we get them help. And that's I think one of the most important things is they feel confident enough that they can come up to a supervisor or another coworker and say, hey, you know what, I'm going through a lot of problems at home. You know, I need